John Franklin here to Combat Press. I'm out front of Wasted Grain. The World Series of Fighting 25 weigh-ins were today. The 8-man tournament tomorrow night, Comerica Theatre. I'm here with the man, Chael Sonnen. Chael, let's talk about this 8-man tournament. First, I want to get off the top your thoughts on how you would prepare for something like this. You've wrestled, but this is different.
Oh, it's totally different. I've prepared for these before. I was in an 8-man tournament. I was in 2 4-man tournaments and an 8-man tournament. And I mean, I can tell you for preparing, there's not really an answer. You go to practice and you work hard. Physically, you don't train for it. That's what I'm saying. You don't go out and spar a fight, go in your locker room for 40 minutes, come back out, spar another fight. You just don't do that. You got one crack at this thing. And for these guys, it's tomorrow night. So, physically, there's not totally a way to prepare because you're talking about damage. You're talking about being hurt, and so, what do? You let somebody hurt you and you walk out 40 minutes. You can't do that. It's a one-night thing. And I can tell you, when I did a tournament, a guy named Babalu won the tournament. You remember Babalu?
Yeah.
Sabral? Legend. He won the tournament, and to this day, I look at him differently. I don't see the same guy anymore. There's an allure, there's a respect about him when he walks in a room because of what he went through that one night. And this was in 2002, and I still look at him differently.
So, with that being said, I want you to try and talk me out of this because I look at the brackets and I think, chalk. We know what chalk is, all the favorites. I see guys, so for me it's Mamedov, Ricci, Foster, and Palomino. Seems like the guys that are going to go through, but then that never happens. So then...
Ever. It never happens. See, and I agree with you. And now, you did say something interesting, because I'm of the same school of thought. You said Palomino, and you said Foster. Now, I happen to think those guys beat the living hell out of each other, and if you can come through the other half of the bracket and slip into one of those guys, I think they're going to be at 80-70% best, because I mean, that's a hard fight if they match up. Now, there's a lot of people saying that Foster drew the dark horse of the whole tournament in the very opening round, and that he could have some problems getting through him. So, to your point, there's always somebody that comes through this. The last time there was a tournament, it wasn't all in one night, but it was a Strikeforce Grand Prix. A young man got thrown in that tournament that didn't belong. He was an alternate, wasn't even supposed to be in there, by the name of Daniel Cormier. The rest is history. He's the reigning world champion. So to your point, yes, it's generally a guy that comes through these tournaments that is an unknown and gets his breakthrough night.
And that's the thing. So for the fight, I picked Foster, but then I said, as a dark horse, keep an eye on Mamedov outpointing Ricci and then taking out a worn-out Foster. So, I mean, it's entirely possible. And then you have a guy like Patishnok who, this is it. And I was talking to Jason High last night. So if you're in this tournament and you're Brian Foster and you lose, there's a path back to the belt for you.
Yeah.
There's not a path back to the belt necessarily for Patishnok if you lost in the first round. So this is his shot.
Sure.
So that you can't really, you can't discount that.
Sure. Yeah, well, it's a talking point. Then it becomes, you go a little further on the talking point of, does that become a motivation? Or does that become an added pressure and make a guy choke up? And you never know till it's done. You just don't know. Foster's willingness, I'll tell you how this came down. Palomino was in the ring. He had just lost to Gaethje a second time. He asked Ali in the ring right after that defeat, could I be part of this tournament? Ali says yes. Brian Foster is then yelling from the crowd, put me in, yelling and heckling and begging from the crowd to be put in, and so they put him in. So, I think that those guys' willingness really does mean something. Because don't forget, this isn't skill against skill. When you get into the back after the quarterfinals, these guys don't want to walk back out for the semis. That's why you don't ever see 8-man tournaments. You can't get athletes to agree to do it, and then you can't get a promoter to put up the money and attempt to organize it because they always fall apart. I don't think that's necessarily what's going to happen in this one. We've got guys that want to be here, Foster and Palomino, and they're on the same side of the bracket. And I agree with your point about Ricci. See, I think that Ricci's been completely discounted in this tournament. He's not being discounted, but I think he is being discounted for as good as he is. He's the tallest guy in the weight. He's one of the most experienced here. He's a UFC veteran. He's coming off some good wins. I'm a little more familiar with him than some guys because my teammate, George Stodaropoulos, just fought him. So we sat there and we studied Ricci and we broke him down, and so maybe I'm a little closer to him than some guys are for that reason. But he's good, and some guys are acting like he shouldn't be here. That's wrong.
Well, people are forgetting he was once the third star in the tri-star holy trinity of George St. Pierre, Roy McDonald, and him. He was supposed to be the next guy down the road, and
arguably was. He never really fell off the cliff. Even the fights he lost were pretty competitive fights. And he just kind of had one of those careers where, you call it timing or happenstance, but he never got his ass kicked.
Well, yeah, in his last 6 fights, he was 4-2, and he lost to 2 guys who are better. Wrestlers are his
They
thing.
were good fights, though.
Yeah. So let's talk about first the Jason High Estevan Payan fight. Jason High had a pretty good fight with Rafael Dos Anjos. Now he pushed the ref, got suspended, and then pretty much got on Dana's no longer in the UFC list.
He's a dummy, but he looked good today. I mean, let's let the past be behind. Who hasn't acted like a dummy before? Okay, give High a little bit of a pass. I think he's grown up since then, but he looked good today on the scale. My goodness, you want to talk about a guy that was lean and ripped and in shape. High's a rough guy. For me, High's a tough guy.
Right, and you and I, last time we talked, you told me 145-pound, 155-pound, 2 best divisions in the world, 10 John Joneses in each.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, the World Series of Fighting has a huge commitment to this division. Clearly, they have a night dedicated to it, and the tournament doesn't even involve arguably 4 of the top guys.
Yeah.
So moving forward, do you think that this is sort of where they're, I mean, you got Cosmo Alexandre, both of the Fodor brothers are 155-pound fighters or can make that weight. Is this sort of like how WEC used to be, 135 was their sort of weight they held up?
Sure.
Is this you think what the crown jewel of the World Series of Fighting is presently?
For today's purposes, it is. I think that what Branch is doing with the middleweight and light heavyweight, that sure got a lot of attention. First guy since Dan Henderson to do something like that. So I think there's some conversation all over. Blagoy at heavyweight with the win over Fedor. There's some really good stuff, but 155 is a bit of a pinnacle weight class. Right now, the biggest draw is Justin Gaethje, particularly in the state of Arizona. I mean, he just packs the house, he packs the weigh-ins, he packs the lobby of the hotel. So I think if you can involve him from a business standpoint, it makes some sense, and he's involved in this, right? The winner's gonna draw into him. So to your point on that, I think it's fair.
And the interesting thing is, I mean, you and I can't leave this earth without seeing Brian Foster and Justin Gaethje fight, can we?
Right.
I mean, that has to happen somewhere. I don't know if it's in the parking lot or those two have to fight at some point.
I definitely want to see that, but I mean, I really want to see Foster and Palomino fight. I really do. I mean, should that semifinal happen, I just think the guy on the other side of the bracket really gets a gift right there, because those guys are gonna beat the heck out of each other, and then they've got 30 minutes to recover and walk out for a 3-round main event under unified rules. It's a tough night. See, this is why I'm telling you about Babalu. This is why I respect him so much. But I respect all the guys that enter the tournament and raise their hand. I mean, I look at them differently. That's a courageous thing to do. To be able to come through it, though, man, there's only 5 or 6 guys on earth that have won an 8-man tournament, an 8-man one-night tournament in MMA. 5, 6 guys in the whole world. I can think of Hoist Gracie. I can think of Babalu, who I keep. Who else? Give me a guy.
Fry, Coleman, these guys.
Did Fry do 8-man? Yeah, he did. He did 8-man. Coleman also did 8-man. Did Severn did 8-man?
Yeah, and then that's when they started shutting it down.
Right.
On UFC 12.
He got hurt into the fight. Right. So I got 5 guys right there, and we probably left 1 or 2 out. So there's not a lot of guys that have done this.
So more to the Babalu point, last question, I'll get you out of here on this. If you were in a tournament with 7 other guys, who would those 7 guys have to be for you to feel like I did something that night? Who are your 7 guys you'd like to get in a tournament with to really say, that's what I did?
I was in I don't mean to bring myself into this conversation, but I was in a tournament. It's a really rare thing, and it's been called the toughest tournament of all time. I think that might be right. We had in the tournament, we had Forrest Griffin. I was in the tournament. Babalu was in the tournament. Jeremy Horn was ranked in front of all of us. He was in the tournament. There was a Russian gentleman who had just submitted Randy Couture. He was in the tournament. Trevor Prangley was in the tournament. Shogun was in the tournament. That's a rough night right there.
Yeah.
And when you got to go through these guys, and in Babalu's case, 3 guys in one night. Jeremy Horn was in the finals against Babalu, so he had fought with 3 guys, beat 2 of them. But I mean, it's a hard thing to do, and it was a tough tournament. And so I don't know if I answered your question, but I do think that particularly in hindsight, is the toughest 8-man tournament one night that there's ever been.
Well, yeah, look at all the credit Shogun gets for doing the Pride Grand Prix, and it wasn't even one night.
Yeah,
that's a hell of a night that you had.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right, folks, he's the man, Chael Sonnen. He will be calling it tomorrow night at Comerica Theatre. 8-man tournament, Jason High and Estevan Payan in the co-main event. Chael, thanks for your time.